Citizen Talks is a podcast series brought to you by TRT World Citizen, featuring discussions with humanitarians and activists, artists, and changemakers, exploring the global humanitarian issues that shape our society and the world at large.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Citizen Talks. This is your host Minkailu, and we are very, very pleased to be joined today by Rikki Roath.
Thank you.
She is a TV host and a professional globetrotter. Rikki, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So just to begin, for our audience members who may not be familiar with your work, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what exactly it is that you do?
Of course. So my name is Rikki Roath. I'm an American, originally from a small town called Fargo in North Dakota.
Very famous now in the U.S. for many reasons.
Yes, now we have our own film, our own TV series. I first visited Turkey about 10 years ago, and I've been living here ever since. I'm a TV host. I've had multiple documentaries on TRT. I've worked for Turkish museums, and now I co-own my own travel company, and just opened a cafe this year.
Cool. So can you tell me a little bit about how you got started in the travel industry with this kind of television show and the company, all these things? Like, what did that journey kind of look like?
It was kind of an accident, or just my luck, I guess. I've always loved traveling. I've always loved seeing new places. So I'm actually a professional chef. I was working in restaurants in the US and just decided to take a break from it for one summer. Traveled around Europe and lasted a little bit longer than an entire summer. So as winter was coming, I ran out of money. Didn't have enough money to fly back to the US.
Yeah, you need those things.
Yeah, so I ended up staying in Turkey, taught English for a while, and lo and behold, I started getting offers to do TV commercials, and then eventually for my own travel show.
Interesting. So was there something in particular that resonated with you about Turkey? Like any kind of, feeling that you had when you were here, or you just got stuck here, or you were like, something about this place
Yeah, I mean,
really
there's definitely something about the country. I think it's mostly the diversity, natural diversity for sure, like so many different landscapes, forests and mountains and the sea, and also the diversity in culture. There's so many different influences. You can see like Persian influence, an Arab influence. The Aegean region is similar to Greece. The Black Sea is a totally different culture. So I think there's just so much to see and so much to explore. It was a good place to get stuck in.
Yeah. So what's your favorite part of the country, would you say?
Well, I definitely love a lot of the classic super tourist hotspots like Cappadocia. I love Mardin, the whole southeast of Turkey. Of course, the Black Sea for its mountains. Istanbul for its cultural heritage. But there's one place that I think is totally off the whole tourist radar that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So I live about an hour and a half north of Bodrum.
Okay.
And just inland from where I'm staying, there's a mountain range called the Latmos Mountains, or Beşparmak in Turkish. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Just the mountains are formed from boulders on top of boulders, and there's these villages of just tiny stone houses and ancient paved paths, snaking between the boulders and the mountains. There's nut pines, umbrella-shaped nut pines, and olive trees everywhere, and it's amazing. My favorite place in Turkey.
Not many foreigners walking around there.
No, not many.
So we can consider that a benefit, perhaps. So in your TV series, Rikki's Route to Turkey, you focused a lot on producers and people that were using natural production methods. Can you tell me a bit about what the intentions were behind that focus?
Since I am a chef, I wanted to go in more of a food direction with my second show. And in addition, I think it's a topic that Turkish people are really interested in, because so many of them now live in the city, but they have very close ties to the land. Their grandparents or parents grew up in a village. Right. Everyone's roots are actually in agriculture, in working with the soil. So to be able to combine combine food with all of the heritage, or should I say like the ancestry of the Turkish people, I think is a topic that almost everyone can get into.
Okay. So what did you find about sort of the nature of, traditional production methods versus the modern production techniques? Was there any sort of unique insights that you think that you gained from that?
I mean, it's so clear to me that the traditional way of doing things is the right way. To have a small farm with mixed farming, with animals, fruits and vegetables all together. Not only does it benefit your health, it benefits the entire planet. The minds of people who work in these types of environments are always clear. They're always happy. They don't have the stress of our modern world. And to see these huge monocrops, mass agricultural farms, the difference is so clear. The direction we should have been going in all along is so clear to me.
Yeah. So the nature of something you said interested me, the nature of how people feel in these scenarios. Have you found that there's sort of any connection between, people who are traditional sort of producers and certain spiritual practices that you find in those communities or those environments, generally speaking?
I mean, for sure. If we're talking about tradition goes in all aspects of life. When people are traditional farmers, usually their entire culture, their entire day is rooted in tradition. So I would say these spiritual practices and these religious ideas have much more of a foothold within small communities, rural communities, and farming communities.
Right. The reason that I ask is because, I feel like in the modern era, we view the environment primarily as a commodity, right? Something, an object for us to use, to exploit for, the benefit of ourselves. And, part of this mentality is connected to, I think, the sort of desacralization of nature, where all sort of, spiritual or sacred aspects of the environment that we live in were completely removed from our society. And now we live within this sort of capitalist, materialist consumption framework everywhere in the world. And again, that disconnect from nature at a sacred level is part of what I think allows people to be so destructive when they are dealing with nature, and so exploitative when they're dealing with nature. And, I wonder, do you feel that more sustainable production methods are really possible in the modern world that we live in, where we have this mental framework? Is it because that requires a massive social shift in terms of how we think about the things that we use, right? Do you think that that's something that's even possible based on what you've seen, how people are living in sort of these traditional societies and sustainably producing things versus living in a city in a big country and seeing that sort of materialism? Do you feel like we can go back, or is it possible to shift to more sustainable production methods, and what kind of social shifts would be required to kind of make that happen?
Well, it definitely won't be an easy process, but I do think it's possible. I mean, there's been massive shifts in our thinking before, like the Industrial Revolution, the technological revolution. So I don't see why we couldn't go back. But as you said, it is going to take a behavioral shift that transcends just our community. It has to be a worldwide mindset change.
Yeah.
But I think it's possible. Even within, the only positive thing about a capitalistic system is that we're in control as the consumer. So whatever we demand, businesses have to produce. If we, as a society, begin to demand sustainable products, they'll have no choice but to sell sustainable products.
Yeah. So can you tell us about some of your own initiatives that you've been working on around sustainability, around the environment, around the preservation of cultural heritage? I know that you're working on a few things. What are you involved in?
Well, I think my first steps towards that was education through my documentary work, which of course, so we showed Turkey as a whole, the richness in their traditions. I think a lot of Turkish people don't realize just how important and how interesting their cultural heritage is. So I liked to go to place, meet these villagers, learn about these traditional production methods, but at the same time, show Turkish people that it's important to preserve these traditions. I've since went on to co-found my own travel company. And within the travel company, we do the same. Not for locals, but for tourists. You know, I try to get people out of the mass tourism, off of the traditional tourist track, and show them these amazing villages and these cultural practices that are almost lost. Not only does it make for an amazing trip, but it actually helps the local community economically. You know, they can host a group of foreigners for lunch, even to stay, sell some of their products. In addition to that, at my new cafe, I try to go as close to zero waste as possible. So make all my own drinks. I bottle them myself in reusable bottles, wash them in reuse over and over, filter water, and do the same with my water bottles. You know, I always try to buy from local producers as much as possible, from farmers markets. And at these farmers markets, it's a bit of work, but at least using reusable bags, reusable jars, there's all small steps.
Right.
There's small steps, but I think it's the mindset change. We all need to be willing to just take one extra step towards sustainability.
Where's your cafe? Where's it located?
It's just close to where I'm living, about an hour and a half north of Bodrum.
Okay, very cool. I think you touched on this a little bit, but like getting into it really more specifically, you know, why is for you personally, why is the preservation of these cultural heritages so important to you, right? I feel like, you know, we live in an era where progress is almost its own religion, and anything that's new is just automatically considered to be good. Mm-hmm. So what is it that really is very important to you in that, in preserving those traditions? You know, what's the value or the benefit that you see that it's going to have on people today?
I mean, at its core, of course, cultural heritage is important so we can preserve diversity. I mean, I'm all for globalization, but at the same time, we don't want everything to be monotone.
Right.
The different cultures, different languages, different traditions, and different foods from a culinary aspect. I mean, it's all important, but on a deeper level, I think, you know, all of these cultural practices and these traditional ways of farming or ways of living, they have thousands of years of practice behind them. We've learned, I mean, every tradition has a reason. We've learned, our ancestors have learned for millennia how to do things properly without damaging nature, because up until now, we were forced to live together and to preserve the balance of nature. So right now in the system we're going towards, it's all sort of curated around fixing problems. We've forgotten our thousands of years of knowledge, and we create these new technological products which are amazing. Think about fertilizers or pesticides. They allow you to grow thousands of acres of a single crop. But the problem becomes soil degradation. So now we need new fertilizers, we need new things. And there's always a problem that we're creating, so we solve that problem, but our solution creates another problem. And that solution creates another problem. And I feel like eventually there will be a problem that we can't find a solution to.
No. We just blow it all up and start over, I guess, at that point.
Yeah.
Well, so let's speaking more hopefully. Let's talk about like an average person today doing their thing, you know, living their life. Can you recommend sort of any practices or actions that they can just implement today to try to live, you know, a more sustainable, environmentally conscious lifestyle? Are there things that like worked for you, for example, that you could recommend to, you know, just a person who's like, well, I can't necessarily change the whole world, but I can change my own behavioral patterns?
Of course, I mean, we've been talking about local producers. I think one of the most important things is you support the people who are doing it correctly, the people who are doing it right. So find those local producers, find the people who are preserving cultural heritage and preserving these traditional practices, and buy their products. Not only is it healthier, it tastes 100 times better.
Yeah.
And by supporting them economically, you also support their way of life. I think that's the easiest and most beneficial for all aspects of our being. And of course, there's all of the ones people know about. You know, drive less, ride your bike more,
Right.
offset your carbon footprint, all of these things.
Okay.
Recycle.
You guys heard it. Recycle. Okay, cool. So do you have any kind of final words or any message that you'd like to share with the audience before we conclude today?
Yeah, I hope that I hope I could give everyone a message of hope. I don't see any sense in being sad or feeling hopelessness surrounding the environment or sustainability. I think one of the best pieces of advice I've received, and the advice that I would like to give to everyone, is that we need to change what we can and accept what we can't.
It's very good advice. Wonderful. So for those members of our audience who want to find out more about what you're doing and want to connect with you perhaps, how can they find you, like on social media, or where can they perhaps watch some of your content? What would be the location for them to go to for that?
Yeah, I have both my travel company, my travel agency, and my personal account on Instagram. You can follow me there. All of my old episodes are still on TRT, documentary. You can find them on YouTube.
Wonderful. Awesome. So, Rikki, thank you so much. We really appreciate you
thank
joining
you.
us here today. We thank you for your time and also for your efforts for all the work that you're doing, and we hope to see more from you in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for all of our listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of Citizen Talks, and we will see you next time.